Now, welcome to Advanced Toastmasters Online. Some online meeting tips. Please use your headset or earbuds if you have any to avoid some feedback. Please mute your microphone if you are not speaking at the lower left-hand corner of your screen, and you can turn your video on and off if you'd like to, but we'd like to see your face while we're in the meeting. You can adjust your view. This is what they call the gallery view, as you're looking at right there, and you can click on the button where it says speaker view to only see the active speaker. You can do that from your side. I will have different controls on my side. To send questions and notes for the speaker, you click on that chat function there, and you can send notes privately to the speakers as they're speaking. Not as they're speaking, but after they're finished speaking. Please do that in between speaking roles and maybe while the Toastmaster is introducing everyone. This meeting will be recorded. Our policy by participating in our meeting is that you agree that a recording will be available publicly on our YouTube channel and on other media sites. You can join our club if you're watching from the recording by going to this place that says start here. It says become a member. You go there and you can find out all the qualifications that you need to be a part of our Advanced Toastmasters Club. And at this time, I would like to put the gavel down, say welcome to Advanced Toastmasters Online. And I will pass it over to Doug, our Toastmaster of the day, and he can read our club's mission and we'll get started. Handing it over to you, Doug.
Good afternoon, good morning, and good night to our Toastmasters, wherever you are. We are an Advanced Toastmasters Club, which supports maverick leaders to have more impact by providing advanced feedback on leadership skills and discovering what it means to be an out-of-the-box, innovative leader. So now I get to use the gavel to say welcome to the meeting. Now, first, I'm going to be a bit of a maverick for this meeting and say there is no theme, because meetings don't necessarily have to have one, although they can be fun. But particularly since we don't have a grammarian for today, and well, given that we got more people here than I thought we were going to have, I've chosen not to bother filling that role since, you know, for small, you can lose certain roles like the grammarian. And so we wouldn't have someone to track a word of the day. Instead, we're going to move straight along, and I'd like to introduce our timer, who we just heard from, but we get to again. Dawn Nacera will tell us about the timer's role. Welcome, Dawn.
Hi, thank you very much, Doug. And today I'm going to be your timer, and I will be timing everyone's speech. Please send me your speech times in the chat. I will put up a green folder. You'll see a green folder maybe along with my face or maybe not, just like that in front of here. And make sure that when you're speaking that my face is on the little screen up in front of you so you can see me while you're speaking. I'll also put it in the chat function. I'll put green, yellow, and red. I'll send that privately to you as you're speaking. And during table topics, I'll time them as well. So green for you have made it the start point, yellow when you're halfway through or close to the end, and then red when your time is up. So thank you very much, and back.
Thank you, Dawn, for explaining the timer's role and showing us how you're going to be giving this times for everybody. We have two speeches prepared for today, and I'll move right along to introducing our first speaker.
Excuse me, Mr. Toastmaster. Mark here. I'm the GE for today. You may have discussed it already, but I need an evaluator for Andrea.
Oh, I'm sorry. I did update the agenda. We have Rick Weiner doing the first evaluation and Lori Whitmore doing the second.
Excellent.
But that was a bit of a last-minute change, so
I understand.
When you pulled the agenda up, you'd probably get something different.
That's correct. Thank you so much.
For the timer, I'll just confirm the times. Tricia, you're doing a read out loud speech, which is going to be 12 to 15 minutes. And Andrea's speech is our standard 5 to 7, although it's an advanced speech, right? Great. In that case, I'd like to introduce our first speaker. Tricia is doing a project from the Specialty Speeches Manual. In fact, she's finishing up this advanced manual, which will bring her closer to completing her Advanced Communicator Silver. Tricia reads an excerpt from one of her favorite authors, poet Edgar Allan Poe. So to read her speech, The Telltale Heart, please welcome Tricia Grome.
Thank you so much, Doug. This is a short introduction into the piece I'm going to be reading. This is Edgar Allan Poe's story about a man who is under the vein of madness. They believe that he's gone insane. And this is his descent. True, nervous, very, very dreadfully nervous. I had been, and am. But why will you say that I am mad? The disease has sharpened my senses, not destroyed, not dulled them. Above all else was the sense of hearing acute. I heard all things in the heaven and in the earth. I heard many things in hell. How then am I mad? Hearken and observe how healthily, how calmly I can tell you the whole story. It is impossible to say how first the idea entered my brain, but once conceived, it haunted me day and night. Object there was none. Passion there was none. I loved that old man. He had never wronged me. He had never given insult. For his gold, I had no desire. I think it was his eye. Yes, it was this. He had the eye of a vulture, a pale blue eye with a film over it. Whenever it fell upon me, my blood ran cold. And so, by degrees, very gradually, I made up my mind to take the life of the old man and thus rid myself of the eye forever. Now this is the point. You fancy me mad. Madmen know nothing. But you should have seen me. You should have seen how wisely I proceeded, and with what caution, with what foresight, with what dissimulation I went to work. I was never kinder to the old man than during the week before I killed him. And every night, about midnight, I turned the latch of his door and opened it. Oh, so gently. And then, when I had made an opening sufficient for my head, I put in a dark lantern, all closed, that no light shone out, and then I thrust in my head. Oh, he would have laughed to see how cunningly I thrust it in. I put in the dark lantern, so I would do this very, very slowly, so that I might not disturb the old man's slumber. It took me an hour to place my whole head within the opening, so far that I could see him lay upon his bed. Ha! Would a madman been so wise as this? And then, when my head was well into the room, I undid the lantern cautiously. Oh, so cautiously. I undid it just so much that a single thin ray fell upon the vulture eye. And this I did for 7 long nights. Every night, just at midnight. But I found the eye always closed, and so it was impossible to do the work. For it was not the old man who vexed me, but his evil eye. And every morning, when the day broke, I went boldly into the chamber and spoke courageously to him, calling him by name in a hearty tone, and inquiring how he had spent the night. So, you see, he would have had to been a very profound old man indeed to suspect that every night, just at 12, I looked upon him while he slept. Upon the 8th night, I was more than usually cautious in opening the door. A watch's minute hand moves more quickly than did mine. Never before that night had I felt the extent of my own powers, my sagacity. I could scarcely contain my feelings of triumph. To think that here I was, opening the door little by little, and he not even to dream of my secret thoughts or deeds. I fairly chuckled at the idea, and perhaps he heard me, for he moved on the bed suddenly as if startled. Now, you might think that I drew back, but no, his room was as black as pitch with a thick darkness, and I knew he could not see the opening of the door, and I kept pushing on it steadily. I had my head in, and I was about to undo the lantern when my thumb slipped upon the fastening, and the old man sprang up in bed, crying, "Who's there?" I kept quite still and said nothing. For a whole hour I did not move a muscle, and in the meantime I did not hear him lay down. He was still sitting up in the bed listening, just as I have done, night after night, hearkening to the death watch on the wall. Presently, I heard a slight groan, and I knew it was the groan of mortal terror. It was not a groan of pain or grief. Oh no! It was the low, stilted sound that arises from the bottom of the soul when overcharged with awe. I knew that sound well. Many a night, just at midnight, when all the world slept, it has welled up from my own bosom, deepening with its dreadful echo the terrors that distracted me. I say I knew it well. I knew what that old man felt, and I pitied him, although I chuckled at heart. I knew that he had been laying awake ever since that first slight noise. When he had turned in the bed, his fears had been ever since growing upon him. He had been trying to fancy them causeless, but could not. He had been saying to himself, "It is nothing but the wind in the chimney. It is only a mouse crossing the floor." Or, "It is merely a cricket which has made a single chirp." Yes, he has been trying to comfort himself with these suppositions, but he has found this all in vain, because death, in approaching him, has stalked him with his black shadow before him and enveloped the victim. And it was this mournful influence of the unperceived shadow that caused him to feel, although he did not see nor hear, but to feel the presence of my head within the room. When I had waited a long time, very patiently, without having heard him lie down, I resolved to open a very, very little crevice in the lantern. So I opened it. You cannot imagine how stealthily, until at length a simple, dim ray, like a thread of a spider, shot out from the crevice and fell upon the vulture eye. It was open, wide, wide open, and I grew furious as I gazed upon it. I saw it with perfect distinctness. A dull blue, with a hideous veil over it that chilled the very marrow in my bones. But I could not see anything else of the old man's face or person, for I had directed the ray as if by instinct precisely upon that damned spot. And have I not told you that what you mistake for madness is but an over-acuteness of the sense? Now, I say, there came to my ears a low, dull, quick sound, such as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. I knew that sound well, too. It was the beating of the old man's heart. It increased my fury as the beating of a drum stimulates the soldier into boldness. But even yet, I refrained and kept still. I scarcely breathed. I held the lantern motionless. I tried how steadily I could maintain the ray upon the eye. Meantime, the hellish tattoo of his heart increased. It grew quicker and quicker and louder every instant. The old man's terror must have been extreme. It grew louder, I say, louder every moment. Do you mark me well? I have told you I am nervous. So I am. And now, at the dead of the night, amid the dreadful silence of that old house, so strange a noise as this excited me to uncontrollable terror. Yet, for some minutes longer, I refrained and stood still. But the beating grew louder. I thought the heart must burst. And now a new anxiety seized me. The sound would be heard by a neighbor. The old man's hour had come. With a loud yell, I threw open the lantern and leaped into the room. He shrieked once, only once. In an instant, I dragged him to the floor and pulled the heavy bed over him. And I smiled gaily to find the deed so far done. But for many minutes, the heart beat on with a muffled sound. This, however, did not vex me. I knew it would not be heard throughout the wall. And at length, it ceased. The old man was dead. I removed the bed and examined the corpse. Yes, he was stone dead. I placed my hand upon the heart and held it there many minutes. There was no pulsation. He was stone dead. His eye would trouble me no more. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Tricia, for a reading of such a great story. I think the poem has a bit more to it, but it's unfortunate we didn't have time to hear everything. Still, that was well done. Now we have our second speaker, Andrea. Today, actually, we should take a moment for anyone to give some comment in the chat to Tricia for her reading. So we'll pause for a sec to do that. Okay. Our second speaker. Today, Andrea Sanger will be working out of the Humorously Speaking Manual, project number 3, Make Them Laugh. Her title is, Can You Learn to Be Funny? Through her life, although her life is filled with humorous stories, being intentionally funny is challenging for her. Rehearsing and telling a joke is a foreign concept for her. However, in this speech, she's taking a page out of one of her mentor's books, literally, attempting to give us some tips on how to be funny and tell a joke while fulfilling the requirements of this speech to pepper it with jokes. The book is Let's Laugh, Discovering How Laughter Will Make You Healthy by C. Peter Wagner. Please welcome Andrea Sanger with Can You Learn to Be Funny?
Thank you, Toastmasters, and here we go. Let's see if I can do this. There were 2 old men out for breakfast, and one asked the other, boxers or briefs? The other answered, depends. The first time I heard that joke, my mentor, C. Peter Wagner, who was a seminary professor for 35 years, and he taught missiology, which I don't even know what it is. He helped author over 100 books. He started a university after his retirement. In other words, this man was overly intelligent and used words that I generally did not understand. In fact, he knew that he was so intelligent that he often put kids to sleep in his classes. So he decided one day he was going to learn to tell a joke. He wasn't naturally funny. I just want you to know that. He was not naturally funny. So as a very good scholar, he went out to study telling jokes. And he came up with an 8-step process for telling jokes and learning to be funny. So today, what I'm going to do is tell you the 8 steps that he came up with, which I actually think are kind of humorous just on their own. Number 1 is believe that it's possible for you to tell a joke. Really? Just believe you can tell a joke and you're going to be able to do it? I don't know. But he tried. So number 2, decide that you want to tell jokes and to make people laugh. Okay. So now I've decided I want to do this and I believe I can do it. So I'm going to try a joke on you, which is this curious man was talking to God. He asked God, how long is 1,000,000 years in your time frame? God said, 1 second. Then the man asked, how much is $1,000,000? God said, oh, about a penny. So the man asked God, would you give me a penny? And God said, in a sec. This is typical of what this professor used to do. He would tell stories that were totally not part of the conversation. And it never made sense to us. But if he told it well, it would come off and we would all laugh. So he decided that the next step in his process was to make a joke file. And you can do this by having a database, using an Excel file, so you can sort your jokes, because some jokes just aren't funny. He went on and he said, find an audience, somebody that will listen to your jokes. Usually the people that are in your sphere of influence are the best because they're going to appreciate your humor the most, or they'll be the most honest with you if it really sucks. So I'm going to try what he used to do with us, and I'm going to tell you 2 jokes, and I'd like you to put in the chat box which joke you like better. Number 1, did you hear what the Mexican firefighter called his 2 sons? Jose and Jose B. The second joke is, a note in the church bulletin read, Men's Fellowship this Saturday is the annual Bean Supper. It will be in the fellowship hall. Music will follow. Remember to put which one you like better in the chat box. The next one is to test them by reading them. And he would do this. He literally would reach in his pocket and pull out a white card like this, and he would read the jokes to us. And he had I think he had a whole pile of them in his jacket pocket, and then he would read them to us. If you tell the joke well, people will laugh even if you read it. Even though Toastmasters tells us that we're supposed to memorize everything, he was a firm believer in just go ahead and reading it and doing it well. The next step, develop an environment of humor. He was not a humorous person, but everybody knew that he would tell a joke at the beginning of every event that he was at. So people actually came in early so that they would get a good seat, so they would hear his jokes. He developed an environment of humor. And this has to do with telling a joke with a smile on your face, anticipation, and getting to the punchline and ready to give that punchline. It doesn't work if you do tell a joke like this. Weight Watchers will meet at 7 p.m. on Tuesday. Please use the large doors at the side entrance. Not very funny, but sort of. It's cute. It's not funny. But when I do it deadpan, it's not very funny at all. So you have to develop a sense of humor. The next one is to cull your jokes. If they're not humorous, just get rid of them. And the last one, again, gaining a reputation. Even today, after he's died, when students get together, they get together and they talk about his sense of humor. Even though he taught them all kinds of wonderful things, he had developed a reputation of being humorous. So the steps again are believe it's possible, decide you want to do it, make a joke file, find an audience, test your jokes, develop an environment of humor, call your jokes, and gain a reputation. My final joke today is some cities have equipment to take pictures of you running a stoplight. In one city, a man received a ticket in the mail along with a picture of himself and a fine of $200. The man got two $100 bills, put them down, took a picture of them, and sent the picture in. A week later, he received a picture of a pair of handcuffs. He sent the money in. I'm going to stop here before you pull me off the end and tell me that my jokes are just terrible. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Andrea, for amusing us with some great jokes and some not so good ones, but giving us a good lesson all the way along. That brings us to the end of our prepared speeches for today and moves us into impromptu speaking, table topics.
Doug, are we going to take a moment for Andrea's speech to jot down some notes?
Very good. Yeah, I was only joking about introducing the table topics right away. Let's take a moment to give Andrea some feedback.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Bless you. Now we can move to the table topics, and we're going to bring our last speaker right back up to the camera, because Andrea is also going to be our table topics master. Please welcome back our resident comedian, Andrea Sanger.
Thank you all. I've been thinking I have two different topics today that I could use, and I'd like you to vote on which one you would like to talk about more. I would like to know if you'd like to talk more about style of leadership or social media. If you'd like social media, raise your hand. If you like style of leadership, raise your hand. Okay, so we're going to do style of leadership since there's 2, 3 of you that like style of leadership better. Is there anyone who would like to volunteer to go first? Anyone? Okay, so I'm just going to ask somebody, and I'm going to ask Mark, because I'd like you to go first on this. Would you consider what style of leadership do you think you have? Since this is a group of leaders, what style do you have? Are you a mentor, a coach, a authoritarian, micromanager? What style is your style?
Thank you, Madam's Table Topics Master. Excuse me. For myself, because a great deal of my work occurs in the academic setting, there's a particular type of relationship that must be established with your student target group. And for me, classroom management is always an issue, particularly considering what we do. As such, for me, what's extremely important is delivery of content, the ability or atmosphere to practice, and providing that feedback, which students need so often. More and more, what I've experienced recently is that this is the cycle. I began in August, and the seniors want a job. The seniors want to get into graduate school, and they can do so. But frequently, they neglect to consider timing. The essay. The essay is critical. And I explained to them, you think it's just one iteration. It will be 8 to 14. Get ready for this. You need to communicate with the school. You need to find faculty. There is a process. And I find myself operating in that manner, almost mother henning the process to get it done. And one of the most fulfilling experiences is when parents approach me at graduation and just thank me. Back to you, Madam Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Mark. Doug, I'm going to ask you the next question. Would you prefer, if you had a difficult thing that you were working on, would you prefer to work in a room by yourself, or would you rather be in an open concept room with a lot of people giving you input on it?
Thank you for the question, Andrea. Would I prefer with a difficult concept to work by myself or amongst a group? Well, given that by nature I am an introvert, I think by myself is definitely the choice that I would go. Usually, I would be working much more alone. Although sometimes when you have a difficult problem, you have to be able to ask for help. You have to be able to get people to work together to try and achieve that problem. This is an area that I still need some work on. I like to be able to solve the problem. I want to get to the heart of it and feel good about doing that myself. But sometimes that's not the smartest way to go. Sometimes you have to really be a leader and go to people and say, we need to work together to solve this. Because you can't be a leader if you're all alone in a room. The only person you'd be leading is yourself. So sometimes there are problems that really call for getting a team, managing those resources and leading so that you can really get to the heart of it and solve it. And I will do that at times. But if I feel like I can go and just work it out for myself, I'll probably go find a room where I can concentrate, be alone, and just jump on the problem for myself. Back to you.
Thank you, Doug. Doug, can you time Dawn? Because I'm going to ask Dawn the next question. Dawn, you have stated very clearly that you're a coach. What do you think is helpful about being a coach? Are you a coach or are you a mentor?
Well, I'm definitely a coach, because there are times when it just comes down to, I got to tell people what to do. So that is, that's one of the things that I incorporate. Not every coach is like that, but one of the ways that I do it is just getting down to saying, like, this is what needs to be done. And then coaching them behind that concept of, like, okay, this is what needs to be done. What's stopping you from doing it? And that's where, like, the deep dive self-awareness comes in, where I'm helping somebody discover, okay, so you say you want to work less, and you say you want to go on vacation more, and you say you want all these things, and so you have to hire more people. So what's stopping you? And it comes down to, this deep dive of self-awareness. And usually it's a trust thing. They don't trust themselves. They don't trust someone else. And that's, one of the things I do as a coach. But I have to, within my coaching world, have a shared vision. So that's the one thing I wanted to kind of end with. If I don't have a shared vision with the person, if I don't know what their vision is, and if I don't share that vision, then I can't help them. So back to you, Andrea. Thanks for the question.
Thank you, Dawn. Rick, you get the next question. As a religious leader, you often have to work with volunteers, and also as a DTM, you're also working with volunteers a lot. What would you say is the best way to help volunteers get on board with whatever it is you're doing?
Thank you for the question, and that's a really good question. I think one of the things I learned in leadership in Toastmasters is that I may have a vision on how I want something done and how I would do it, but I should not project that onto a volunteer. What I should do, and what is most effective, is telling the volunteer the goal, what you want accomplished, and even though it may be done in a manner that doesn't feel right to me, the outcome is usually positive, and it gives them an opportunity to grow in the role. When I have somebody that comes to me and wants to do something, give them that okay to do it. Let them follow their own methods, unless they come to me for advice or support, and then I support them the best I can. But I think the best way to support somebody else's leadership and growth is to let them go there, possibly make mistakes, but let them go there, do their thing, and in the long run, things will be done. They'll be done well, not necessarily the way I expected, but I'm not the ruler of the universe. However it's done is usually perfect anyway. Madam Topics Master.
Thank you, Rick. Lori, you're next. I'm going to do this along the same vein as Rick's with volunteers. You've gotten a group of volunteers together and they are now doing something to move toward a goal, but you recognize that one person in particular in the group has totally messed something up. Do you confront them in front of other people? Do you confront them at all? Do you just come along and fix it? What do you do?
Madam Table Topics Master, thank you for the question. I have been faced with that dilemma in my life, having led many different volunteer groups. One of the things that we learn, that I've learned actually from Rick about Judaism, is that we do not embarrass someone. In fact, according to Jewish law, embarrassing someone is as bad as killing someone. And so I would never bring something up in front of a group. But I also wouldn't just take care of it. I think that I would use a method that I've learned, kind of like a Toastmasters evaluation, plus, plus, minus, plus. Tell the person something they're doing well. Mention another thing they're doing well. Say what I really need to say, that's the minus, and give them some feedback about what needs to be improved, and then finish it up with something that why they're valuable to the team. And so that's what I use, plus, plus, minus, plus, for giving feedback, and I would absolutely do it privately. Madam Topics Master. You're muted, Andrea.
Thank you for everyone for responding to those questions. Back to you, Doug.
Thank you, Andrea, for giving us some very interesting questions. Now we move to the evaluation section of the meeting. For that, I would like to introduce Mark Worthy, who is our general evaluator. Please welcome Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. The function of the GE, the General Evaluator, is to give feedback regarding the proceedings, that which we did well, and those areas of improvement. Now, this cannot be executed without a team of wonderful, engaged people. So I'd like to call on Richard to unmute himself and deliver the feedback for Trisha's speech. Please join me in welcoming Richard.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. All I can really say is, wow. Trisha did such an amazing job delivering her speech. While listening to her speech, I didn't think she was reading. I thought she was delivering it out of memory. Her reading was so well designed that you could not tell by the camera. Feedback for improvement. She was using her hands at times, and sometimes you only saw like the fingertips as I'm showing now. You have to be more aware of camera space rather than just speaking a little bit with the hands. That was not all the time, just a little bit of the time. Her enunciation, her inflections, everything that she delivered was so well done. I was saying, I have to give her feedback, room for improvement. That's how we grow. There wasn't a lot that I could find. Mostly the only thing I could find was being more aware of your camera space, unlike the mess behind me. Her room was well done. Her vocal variety was fantastic. Her facial expressions were excellent. At one point she said, thrust my head forward, and she thrusted her head forward. Every part of that was rehearsed and well designed. That's the only room I have for improvement, and because I was just really enjoying what she had to say and her method. At this point, I'd like to open it up. Is there anybody that would like to add any thoughts on the evaluation? Doug.
I got to say, I enjoyed the reading. I thought she did a great job. And yeah, I couldn't tell that she was actually reading. It was very well done that way. I want to give Trisha a challenge, though. Since she's reading Edgar Allan Poe and a story which really is a horror story, I found your tone of voice, I mean, it's always kind of a general chipper, happy tone of voice. And that works most of the time. But I think in this situation, a voice that conveys a bit more sense of dread and terror, that you got to dig deeper into the depths of your voice so that you can feel that passion and anger and that incipient madness. That would have really rocked this thing.
Thank you, Doug. Excellent feedback. Is there anybody else that has any feedback they'd like to offer?
I do. This is Dawn.
Oh, Dawn, go for it.
Well, I'm going to respectfully disagree with Doug because I thought it was perfect that Trisha used her soft, sweet, kind voice to kind of contrast between this villainous thing that happened, the murder, and it was the crazy scene. He's trying to convince people he's not crazy. And I thought the fact that she was so sweet and so smiley, I thought that this one, it kind of worked. I felt that tension between the reality that he killed somebody and he's trying to convince people that he's crazy, and then Trisha's smiley face, like, I'm thinking that he really is crazy watching Trisha speak and do this because she's doing it with this happiness, and it made me feel definitely more torn between the reality. And so anyways, respectfully disagree. I appreciate it, and I love your eye contact. The way you use your eyes to kind of like, creepily look up there and do those things. Your facial expressions are great, so thank you. Back to you.
Thank you. Is there any further feedback for Trisha?
I do.
Okay, Lori?
Just very briefly, what I really appreciated about Trisha's speech in this amazing reading that she did, and I think it's a strength of hers, is her wide range of vocal variety. And her facial expressions were so rich in showing emotion. So I thought she just did a phenomenal job.
Okay. I think that completes it, unless there's someone else that has a burning desire to say something. Right. Mr. General Evaluator, I turn the camera back to you.
Thank you very much, Richard. I appreciate the manner in which you conducted your evaluation. Next, Lori, please unmute yourself and provide us with the feedback for Andrea Sanger.
Mr. General Evaluator and fellow Toastmasters, it's my privilege to be evaluating Andrea's speech, Keep Them Laughing, from the Humorously Speaking Manual. The objectives for her speech were to prepare a speech that opens with a self-deprecating joke, string 2 or 3 related jokes together in the body of the speech, and close with a humorous story. And Andrea shared with us, she actually shared with us in her opening how challenging telling jokes is for her. So overall, I thought Andrea did a really good job on her speech. She chose a story about telling jokes, and I think a funny story rather than a kind of an educational story about joke telling might have worked better for this project. A few suggestions I have for Andrea are to not display her lack of confidence in joke telling when telling a joke. So the setup of, okay, let's see, I'm going to do this. I felt that she did that a few times that took away from the delivery of her joke. So maybe she should take a sip of confidence before she starts and just go out there and do it. she did have great pauses, and the punchlines of the jokes were delivered really well. So I'd say it's the setup that needs more work. One of the things that Andrea did so well in her speech, and she brings this to every speech she delivers, is her warm, engaging smile, so that as she's speaking, you can feel her exuding that warmth and really making connection with the audience by doing that. And even though that wasn't an objective for this particular project, that is a quality that Andrea brings to every speech. My favorite joke was the one in her opening about depends. And I will admit to Andrea that I'm someone who often doesn't get jokes, and I say to my husband, I didn't get that. So I was so pleased that I got the joke. Overall, though, Andrea did a great job in working on the Humorously Speaking manual, challenging herself, and I give her credit for doing that and look forward to the next one. Would anyone else like to contribute feedback for Andrea as part of the group evaluation?
I will.
Go ahead, Tricia.
Andrea, as another humorously challenged person, I appreciate this topic and your attempt to be humorous. And I just wanted to say that I heard from another completely different topic speech about brain thermatics. So how your brain works is if you think it, it is. So don't think I'm not funny. Think I'm funny. And we might not get it, and that's okay.
That's great, Tricia. I agree. I have learned something similar. If it's 50% believable, it's true. Doug.
Trisha, I really enjoyed the speech, or Andrea, I enjoyed the speech. I thought the jokes were good as well as the information on being funny. The one place I would probably give you a challenge is a number of times when you were telling the joke, you say, and here's my next joke. Like you announced, I'm going to tell a joke now. And I think that it probably would have been more effective in general if you simply moved to the joke, or if you segued to it in a different way, like that reminds me of a story. And the story is actually a joke, but you're not exposing it. This is a joke. You should laugh when I'm done, sort of thing. I think it might be a bit more effective that way.
Thank you, Doug. Anyone else? Dawn?
I appreciate Andrea's ability to tell a story always within the story of every speech that she does. So that warms my heart. And I know it's not about me, but I do also appreciate the fact that Andrea says things like whether or not the joke sucks or not. And it feels to me like it just keeps it really real. And she's sharing a part of her, her journey of being the volunteer, I guess it's not volunteer coordinator, but her job working with people in different situations, and they might say things suck, and people say jokes suck all the time, but how do you say that without saying sucks? I don't know. I appreciate the fact that she said jokes suck or don't suck. So that's a lot to say about her use of that word, but I appreciated it, and I'm glad that it helped me keep it real, and I thought it added more humor to the speech as well. So back to you, Lori.
Thank you, Dawn. Anyone else? All right, then. Thank you, everyone, for your feedback, and I'll turn it back to Mark, our general evaluator.
Mark,
You're
I
not
think you're
muted,
still
Mark, but I
muted.
can't hear you.
Yeah, you might be muted on your side.
Check the connection on your microphone.
Can't hear you. Do you have one of those push button things on your earphones that turns it on and off? Maybe.
Or did the plug pull out slightly on the microphone at the on the jack so that only the headphones are engaged? I don't know. This is the part where we start piping in GUI music and saying, technical difficulties, please stand by.
Maybe we should turn the meeting based on the time back
I
to
was
the
thinking-
Toastmaster.
Yeah, I was thinking the same. Dawn?
Or no, I thought I heard him ask for the timers report.
Well, that would be the next thing. I'm going to take over then.
Okay.
And yeah, ask Dawn for the timers report. Sorry, Mark.
So Trisha's speech was at 12 minutes and 55 seconds. Andrea's 6 minutes and 46 seconds. Mark's table topics, 2 minutes and 7 seconds. Doug, 1 minute, 51 seconds. I was at 127. Rick was at 127. Lori was at 127. Our evaluation, Rick, you were at 149. Lori, you were at 305. And all of the general evaluation portion of it was just under 3 minutes each. So we did really well, I think, on the timing. So back to you, Doug.
Thank you, Dawn, for the timers report. We didn't have a grammarian today, so I won't ask for that report. I think we all spoke very, very well. Now, this would normally be the point where our general evaluator would give a report on the meeting. Did you find anything wrong with your audio or your microphone, Mark? Can we hear you now? Or? Unfortunately, no. We can see your lips moving on the video, but I can't hear anything. In which case, I think that this is time to close our meeting formally, stop the recording, and then we can do the roles for next week. So thank you, everybody, for a great meeting. I did definitely enjoy the meeting.